Welcome to In Conversation with MANWAR podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Do Not Be a Bystander campaign. You can join us in raising awareness about bullying by visiting the donotbeabystander.com, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay informed about upcoming episodes. Today's participants are Shanza, Afza, and Faiza. Our special guest for today's episode is Gary Simpson.
Welcome to our Bullying Awareness podcast. I'm your host, MANWAR Khan. Today, I am joined by three young individuals who are ready to share their thoughts and insights on the topic of optimism. Optimism is a positive mindset, or you can say attitude, that involves expecting favorable outcomes, believing in the possibility of positive changes, and maintaining a hopeful outlook on life. Before we continue, I would like to introduce our participants today, Shanza, Afza, and Faiza, and our special guest for this podcast, Gary Simpson. Gary will shed some lights on the topic and give some tips and advice and his insights on this topic. I would like to talk a little bit about Gary. Gary is an ordained minister and semi-retired teacher counselor. He is an activist and a volunteer with Stop Hate 2000, a group that works to reduce prejudice, discrimination, bullying, and hate. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Now that I have introduced our participants and guests, I'd like to start with the question. My first question will be for, can you guess who? My first question would be for who?
Me.
All right. Sure. If Shanza wants the first question, then. So, optimism and pessimism are two contrasting outlooks on life and its situations. So, Shanza, what does it mean to you, optimistic, being an optimistic? And how does optimism is different than pessimism?
Yeah. So, to be optimistic means to have a positive outlook on life and to believe that favorable outcomes are possible. It involves expecting good things to happen and maintaining a hopeful attitude even in difficult situations. Optimism and pessimism represents two different attitudes and mindsets towards life. Optimism refers to positivity, hope, belief, and pessimism reflects a negative, doubtful, and unfavorable outcomes. So, optimistic mindset can lead to greater happiness and uh, ever well-being. Thank
Do
you.
you consider do you consider yourself as an optimistic or pessimistic person?
Optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Great answer. Thank you so much. So there could be potential disadvantages or challenges associated with being overly optimistic or ignoring certain realities. So my question for Afza is, are there any benefits to being optimistic in our daily lives? If so, what are they?
Okay, so yes, there are several benefits of being optimistic in our daily life. Optimism is basically to have a outlook on life and can also lead us to believe that good things will happen and challenges can be overcome. Some benefits of being optimistic are can improve your mental health, can increase happiness, and enhance physical health, improve problem solving skills, and can lead to higher achievement and better relationship connections. And it is also important to know that optimism does not mean ignoring or denying challenges and negative emotions, but instead it means to approach those problems with a positive mindset.
Perfect. Wonderful. So my next question is for Faiza. How can we teach younger children about optimism and positive thinking?
Okay. First of all, teaching optimism and positive thinking is an ongoing process. Throughout this process, we should remember to be patient, to be supportive, and create an environment that possesses these qualities. Children learn by observing from their elders. So, as Afza said, we should show them to approach challenges in a positive manner with a positive mindset. We should avoid negative self talk and focus on finding solutions. We should encourage gratitude, to be grateful and thankful for whatever we have. We should teach them that failures are a part of life and encourage them to develop problem solving skills. We should always use positive language and encourage them to do the same.
Excellent. Great answer. So, with the completion of our questioning, we will be moving on to the final segment of this podcast. I'd like to invite our special guest, Gary, to share his thoughts.
This is probably a personally challenging topic for me because I'm probably a little bit more on the pessimistic side than on the optimistic side. So I thought I should say that just right off the bat. I really like the answers. Definitions that include and descriptions that include the fact that we're not just looking at the bright side, but we're understanding the complexity of the situation and choosing to see a way or hope for a way that will, be favorable and positive. So I thought those were wonderful comments. I liked all the benefits. And I was making notes like mental health, physical health achievement is improved by being optimistic and problem solving skills. Those are all things that we want in as we go through life and as we continue life. So those things I thought were absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And teaching optimism, I like the idea of being patient. We do this over and over and over again, and being supportive and kind of mentoring or role playing. I'm going to model what it means to be an optimist or to have an optimistic view on things. We may not come out and say that's what I'm doing, but we're actually modeling it as we go through life. And I think those things can be very, very helpful. When I think about optimism, there are a few things that kind of come to my mind that help me have a more positive view on life. Some of you may not, well, you were probably all were born, I think, after he passed away. Bill Matheson was a major figure in Alberta for many years. He was on TV every night for years giving the weather forecasts, and he had an 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. show where I think it was 11 to 2, where he and Bill Jackson would talk about different issues. And it was very enjoyable. What I got a kick out of Bill Matheson was every person who phoned him would, "How are you today?" Well, if you just say good, it becomes dry and boring. So he would try and come up with some way to spice it up a bit. I remember one of his descriptions being, if I felt any better, I wouldn't need an airport to take off. He could just take off on his own. And he would make comments like that people, I think, found funny. And, saying those things helped me feel positive, and it may have helped him feel positive. And I worked with a person for a while who I came to respect quite a bit. And if you asked, "How are you?" you'd get one of two responses. And one of them was, "Darn good." And we're not probably used to thinking that way. But when you start thinking about, "I'm good, I'm not just good a little bit, I'm really, really good," that can help put a smile on your face and helps put a smile on the face of other people too, I think. And I like the idea that, I can't remember, I thought somebody mentioned it, but I also had it in my notes I'd taken, based on reflecting before we started today. But I was thinking of things like setbacks aren't usually permanent. They may be, but often they aren't. It's what's here that hurts. It's not the permanency of it. So it may not be forever. And don't blame yourself, I thought was really, really important. And to focus on your ability. And there's a person I know who many people go to on the internet, and they do this live. So you see the person live, and they'll ask, like, I've got this question. And this person gives advice. And at the end of almost every time the person's asked advice, I hear this comment, "You've got this." an emphasis on your skills, your ability, and the fact that this person has confidence that you're going to go through it and it's going to be okay. And there are people who have created music. In fact, yesterday I ran across a couple of songs, and I can't remember the name of them. They were something that I had never heard before, but they were songs of self-affirmation that help build up our confidence, our ability to do things, our ability to make decisions, the fact that things are going to work out. So I downloaded all those songs that I think the person had been playing live on social media. It took me a few minutes to find them and to get them. And I tend to listen to those. And there are people who take existing songs that, are not copyright, and they may be, famous old Western ballads or songs like that, and they rewrite them with messages that make them feel good by affirming their skills and their sense of ability. And I think those are things that we can do. And some of those are things that can definitely be taught. Because if you come up with a neat, catchy song that reinforces people's belief in themselves and the fact that things can be good in the future, that's maybe can be shared with other people. And if it's one of those songs that you get in your mind you can't shake, that's perfect, because then it's going to go with you, not just for a few minutes, but we're hoping for hours. And I like to tell people this is the weekend. It's time to put away all the self-judgment, all that self-condemnation, putting yourself down, judging yourself, looking at yourself in a negative manner. Take those glasses off and look at yourself through positive glasses that see your abilities and that have confidence in who you are. So I would encourage you to try that for, if not a day, just 5 minutes would be sweet, to give yourself a bit of a vacation from all the self-criticism, all of the pessimism that can come with that, so you can feel more optimistic.
Any questions for Gary?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you for the advice, Gary.
Yeah, those are some great examples.
Yeah, we'll always keep that in mind.
Yeah, excellent. So we have come to the end of this podcast. I would like to thank our participants, Shanza, Afza, and Faiza, for your time. And also want to thank Gary, our special guest, for joining the podcast today. That means a lot to me, for everyone's support here. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Before we wrap up, I would like to remind our listeners that there are several resources available to help individuals dealing with bullying. The Government of Alberta has a bullying helpline which provides support and advice to those experiencing bullying. The bullying helpline can be reached at 1-888-456-2323. Bullying is a violation of human rights. Under no circumstances is bullying acceptable. As a community, we have a shared responsibility to take a stand against bullying and refuse to be a bystander. Thank you for joining in conversation with MANWAR Khan, and see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.